was a senior in high school when all of this went down. By then, senioritis had hit me hard. I barely cared about class anymore. It was football season, and in our small town, those games were everything. Our team was actually good, and honestly, there wasn't much else to do in a boring country town like ours. That Friday, I was stuck in one of those joke electives where no one took anything seriously. My best friend JJ was in there with me, so of course we were messing around the whole time. We already had plans to hit the football game that night, but JJ, being the smooth talker he always was, spun his chair around and started chatting with two girls, Kayla and Ashley. We already knew them, so it wasn't weird when he asked if they wanted to come to the game with us. They said they were down and the plan was set. After school, JJ dropped me off at my place. A few hours later, he pulled up again to grab me, then we went to pick up Kayla and Ashley. By the time we rolled up to the school, the sun was already sinking and we parked way out in the back lot, right by the woods. We had a few Four Locos in the car, checking over our shoulders to make sure no one was watching before pouring some into water bottles to sneak in. By the time we got to the bleachers, we grabbed seats at the very top where nobody could block our view. The game kicked off under the bright lights, but by the third quarter the sun had vanished, and by the fourth we were sitting in complete darkness. Our team was getting crushed, and for once the stands weren't roaring but emptying. By the fourth quarter, groups of kids were already slipping out, not even waiting for the final whistle. We stayed put, planning to chill on the field after. When the game ended, the place cleared quick. Our players rushed to the locker room in embarrassment, the away team shuffled toward their buses, and within 10 minutes the whole stadium felt dead silent. It was just us, a few stragglers, and the uneasy quiet of the night. By this point we were already drunk, laughing too hard to care that our team had just been crushed. Then the field lights clicked off and suddenly everything was swallowed in near darkness, only the moon giving us a faint glow. The place was empty, dead quiet. We stretched out on the field until JJ jogged back with more alcohol. It was close to 10 when he grinned and said, "Let's hit the woods." The girls hesitated, nervous, which only made it sound even more exciting to us. When the girls refused, JJ and I took off running toward the woods, leaving them behind in the dark, knowing they'd get freaked out and chase after us. And of course, they did. We slid under a ripped section of the fence that kids always used as a shortcut and headed down the small hill into the trees. The girls dragged their feet, nervous, so we decided to hide and scare them even more. The second they heard us running, the girls panicked and tried to catch up, but we slipped away and ducked behind two trees, laughing quietly. Then JJ tapped my arm and whispered for me to look. Through the thin streaks of moonlight cutting between the branches, I saw it. A tall, dark figure, maybe 15 feet away, standing perfectly still between two trees. My stomach dropped. Then it spoke. A woman's voice cut through the dark, saying, "You kids shouldn't be in here." My whole body froze. JJ and I stared at the figure, but something felt wrong. It was growing larger, moving closer, yet we never saw its legs shift or heard a single footstep. Terror hit us both at once. JJ grabbed my arm and we bolted, yelling for the girls until we found them. Without looking back, we all sprinted out of the woods together. We told the girls to just run with us to the car and not stop. Out of breath, we finally blurted out that a 7-foot-tall woman was in the woods. JJ said if I hadn't seen her too, he'd think it was just an apparition. The girls begged us to say we were joking, but we weren't. From the car we watched the tree line, waiting, but no one ever came out. The question that still keeps me up at night is why an older woman would even be there. Those woods weren't a park or a trail, they were fenced off school property. Nobody should have been in there. And back then, my high school didn't even have cameras or security. It made no sense, and that's what made it worse. After we finally calmed down, the four of us went to JJ's house, but none of us could shake it. We tried laughing it off, convincing ourselves it had to be a prank or our eyes playing tricks. But deep down, we knew we saw something that didn't add up. I'll let you imagine the rest of that night, because the truth is, we didn't sleep much. Fast forward to summer. Like every year, I worked at the school as a custodian, since they gave me a raise for coming back. There were four of us, 2 older custodians, another 18-year-old, and me. Most days were boring. Mowing grass, cleaning classrooms, mopping floors. But one afternoon in the courtyard, something happened that I still can't explain. I was mowing when I glanced up at the math hallway window. There she was. An older woman, maybe mid-60s, with short curly hair. She was standing perfectly still, watching me. Her face looked blurred behind the glare, but I could feel her eyes on me. I waved. She didn't move, not even a twitch. I sprinted inside, told my boss, and brought him up into the hallway. But when we got there, every door was closed, the lights were off, and the room where I saw her, it was locked and empty. My boss told me I needed coffee, like I was just tired, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Later that day, while mopping upstairs, I left my radio playing music in the hallway. I had every door open and every light on, trying to make it feel less creepy. That's when I heard it. Over the music, a clear woman's voice said, "Young man." I froze. My skin crawled. I shut off the music and searched every classroom, every corner, even under the desks. Nothing. Completely empty. The fear hit me so hard I ran downstairs and told my boss again. He followed me back up, but once more, nothing. Silent halls, locked doors. He told me to take the day off. That night, everything clicked. The towering woman in the woods, the figure at the window, the voice upstairs. What if it wasn't random? What if it was the same presence, something following me from that night with JJ into the walls of the school? From then on, I refused to mop the math hallway. For the rest of the summer, I stayed away, even though every time I passed by, I felt her there, watching from the glass. Years later, I still believe my high school is haunted. Haunted by the spirit of that woman. I don't know who she was or why she was there. And honestly, I'm not sure I want the answer. Because some questions are better left unanswered. This all went down when I was 15, a sophomore in high school. Our school mixed up the lunch schedules every year, so that time I only had 2 friends, Liam and Mike, in my lunch period. A couple months into the year, during first period astronomy, a new kid walked in. Our teacher loved to mess with people, so of course he made the guy introduce himself. The kid said his name was Craig. After a quick joke, the teacher told him to grab a seat. I was in the back row, and the only empty desk was right next to me in the far corner. Craig headed over and sat down. Class hadn't started yet, so everyone was still talking. As soon as he sat, I felt someone's eyes on me. I looked over, and sure enough, he was staring. We made eye contact. He gave me a little nod and said, "What's up?" I nodded back and said, "Hey, what's up?" He told me his name again, so I gave him mine. Craig was a white kid with his patchy, scruffy facial hair, kind of like when someone tries to grow a beard before it's ready. He wasn't good looking, but not ugly either, just a regular looking guy. He kept the small talk going, and I tried to be nice. I figured the first day at a new school had to be rough, and I was probably the first person he'd really spoken to there. We had to pair up for a big astronomy project, and Craig jumped in right away asking if I'd work with him. I said yes, because I didn't have any close friends in that class, and it seemed harmless. We each grabbed a school laptop to start planning, but it didn't take long for me to realize I didn't like his vibe. His jokes were non-stop and way over the top. Dirty stuff, random curses, and this weird, scratchy laugh after every punchline. It wasn't that I was shocked by a few bad words, it was how constant and forced it felt. Like he was trying way too hard to act like we were already best friends. The more he talked, the more uneasy I felt, like there was something just a little off about him. By the end of the period, we had to trade numbers for the project, and I remember a tiny knot forming in my stomach as I saved his contact, wondering if I just signed up for something I'd regret. When the next class ended and lunch finally came around, Mike was out sick, so it was just me and Liam at our usual round table. I noticed Liam's eyes shift past me, and before I could turn, someone slid a chair right beside mine. It was Craig. He gave my shoulder a quick pat and said, "What's up, buddy?" Like we'd been friends forever. My stomach sank. I already knew this meant he'd probably join us every single day. I tried to stay positive, telling myself maybe he wasn't as bad as I thought, but the more he talked, the stranger it felt. His jokes were off, his laugh too loud, and he kept dropping weird comments that made no sense. Liam was polite at first, but soon he was shooting me quiet looks. The kind that say, "Yeah, you see this too, right?" By the end of that lunch, it was clear we both felt something about Craig wasn't just awkward, it was wrong. I'm not one to judge someone for keeping to themselves, but the stuff Craig said had a dark edge that went way past just being quiet. After school that Friday, I walked home, texting my friends about weekend plans, when a message popped up from a number I didn't know. It was Craig. The text said, "Turn around." My stomach dropped. I slowly looked back, and there he was, sprinting down the sidewalk toward me, waving like we were close. Cold chill ran through me, and I whispered, "Oh God," under my breath. I slowed my pace so Craig could catch up, and as soon as he did, he asked how far I lived from school. I told him it was about a 10-minute walk, and he said, "Same," falling into step beside me like it was already decided. Then he asked if I wanted to knock out our project that afternoon and bang it out over some beers. I said I was busy hanging with friends, hoping that would end it, but he pressed again, wanting to know what we were doing. My gut tightened when he straight up asked if he could come. I froze for a second, searching for any excuse, and finally said something lame like, "Liam's mom doesn't let strangers in." To my relief, he just nodded, but the look in his eyes told me he didn't really buy it, and that uneasy feeling kept crawling up my spine as we kept walking. Craig stayed right beside me the whole way, and I couldn't shake the thought that he was actually following me home. When we finally reached my place, I tried to end it quick, gave him a small fist bump and said, "All right, man, see you later." He said it back, but kept walking down the street, slow enough that I caught him glancing over his shoulder. I looked away fast, a cold knot settling in my chest. As soon as I stepped inside, I texted the group chat, telling them how off this guy felt, and Liam replied right away saying he'd noticed it too. We went back to planning our night at his house, but the whole time I couldn't stop picturing Craig's eyes watching me, and 9 o'clock suddenly felt way too far away. An hour or so later, my phone buzzed with a text from Craig that sent a jolt through me. "Yo, what's going on in front of your house? Why is there a cop car?" My heart jumped and I ran to the front door, but there was no flashing light, no siren, just Craig standing in my driveway like it was totally normal. He burst out laughing, this loud, fake laugh, and said, "Got you." My skin crawled. Then he added, "I thought you were heading to Liam's place." I said, "Yeah," in a little, trying to keep my voice calm, and finally asked, "Why are you being so weird?" His smile disappeared instantly. The look on his face shifted from goofy to cold, and I could see I'd actually offended him. The air between us felt heavy, like the moment right before a storm breaks. I told him I had to head inside and close the door fast, heart pounding so loud it felt like he could hear it. Seconds later, my phone lit up. Craig again, this time with a text that just said, "Bro, WTF?" I stared at the screen, stunned. We'd only met that morning, spent maybe 40 minutes together, and now he was acting like we were best friends? Or worse, he'd actually tricked me into coming outside just to prove I was home. My stomach knotted as I typed back, "You're freaking me out, bro." Big mistake. His reply came back in a wall of words, saying he thought I was different, that I seemed chill, but that I'd turned out to be just like everyone else. Every sentence felt heavier, like the air in the room was shrinking, and I realized this wasn't just some awkward new friend. This was something darker, something I didn't know how to stop. I sent every single screenshot to my family group chat, my closest friends, and even the school office so they would know exactly what was happening. My teacher responded first, and promised to contact Craig's parents. A few hours later, the truth came out. His family had been moving from town to town because he kept doing strange, threatening things to other students. Hearing that didn't make me feel any safer, it made the whole night even creepier. I sat in my room with every light on, replaying the sound of that shoe scraping across the patio concrete. A sound so small but so sharp, it cut straight through me. My heart was still pounding like I'd just run a race. I kept asking myself what would have happened if I'd opened that door, or if I'd stepped outside when he texted me to come out bag. That thought alone made my stomach twist. I was grateful I trusted my instincts and stayed inside, but it was terrifying to realize how quickly an innocent school project had turned into a real nightmare. Craig never came back to class that Monday, or any day after. Rumors spread that he had already transferred to another school, maybe even another state, but no one really knew for sure. What I do know is how that night changed me. Now I double-check every lock, every window, every sound in the yard. I don't ignore weird vibes from people anymore. We like to think we can spot danger a mile away, that it's obvious who we should avoid, but sometimes it's the person you just met in class, the one who seems quiet and harmless, who ends up standing in your backyard after dark. That realization sticks with you, so if you ever feel that uneasy gut warning, listen to it. Don't worry about being polite. Don't worry about hurting someone's feelings. Your safety is worth more than a stranger's approval. High school is supposed to be about friends, homework, and figuring yourself out, not about hiding in your own house because someone you barely know decided to follow you home. I was lucky that night, and I know it. Craig disappeared into the shadows of another school district, but the memory of his footsteps on my patio is something I'll never forget. It was the start of September, and the air already had that crisp fall bite. I live out in rural New Brunswick, where the middle school and high school share the same old brick building, so by now, I knew just about everybody. But this year was different. I was coming back as a 19-year-old senior after getting held back, and that alone made the first day feel weird. First period was study hall, nothing exciting, until I noticed a face I didn't recognize sitting across the room. A new kid in a place this small is rare. I walked over, figuring I'd be friendly, and introduced myself. He said his name was Chester, and that he'd just moved here, his voice low like he was still sizing everyone up. Right then, I had no idea how much meeting Chester would change the rest of my year. I walked Chester through the halls, pointing out classrooms and the quickest way to the cafeteria, trying to be the friendly guide I wished I'd had my first day. At first his questions were small talk, how long I'd gone to this school, which teachers were cool, but then his tone shifted. Out of nowhere he asked for my home address, like it was the most casual thing ever. My stomach tightened. Who asks that on day one? I laughed it off, said something vague, but he kept looking at me like he was waiting for an answer. I finally told him no, but figured giving him my snap wouldn't hurt. As I walked to my next class, I couldn't shake the weird chill creeping up my spine, the feeling that his curiosity wasn't just about fitting in. When the last period rolled around, I headed into English, expecting a quiet class since there were only a handful of us. I slid into my seat, dropped my bag, and then felt it, that heavy sense of someone watching. I turned and there was Chester, way in the back, tearing into this soggy, messy sandwich. He didn't blink, just locked eyes with me and gave a slow, deliberate motion for me to come over. My chest tightened. It wasn't friendly. It felt like a dare, like he was testing if I'd follow him into something I'd regret. Mr. Best started the lesson, so I kept my eyes on my book, trying to act like Chester wasn't drilling holes through me with that stare. But a few minutes in, I glanced up. He was still at it, only now his face looked angry, tight, like I'd done something to set him off. He gave that same sharp motion for me to come over. I lowered my head and turned a page, heart thudding. Then my phone buzzed under the desk. A Snapchat from him. Follow me. I typed back, can't, we're in class, hoping that was the end of it. Seconds later, he stood up, asked Mr. Best for a bathroom pass, and slipped into the hall without looking back. The door clicked shut, leaving this heavy silence that made my skin crawl, like the whole room knew something was off. I waited a minute, heart pounding, before stepping quietly down the hall. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I kept my distance, making sure my footsteps didn't echo. He moved strangely slow, like he knew someone might be watching, and every turn of his head made me freeze. When he slipped into that forgotten hallway, the one everyone avoided because it smelled like dust and old paint, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I watched him push open the heavy basement door and disappear inside, the metal hinge groaning like it hadn't been used in years. For a second I thought about following, but the darkness beyond that door felt wrong, like it was swallowing sound itself. My palms were damp, my chest tight. I knew I should turn back, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. Still, when the silence stretched and the air turned colder, instinct took over. I backed away slowly, every nerve screaming, and forced myself to walk, then practically run, back toward the warm, noisy safety of class, pretending nothing had happened even as my heart refused to settle. My phone buzzed the second I sat down, the sound sharp enough to make me jump. It was him. First came a text. "Why didn't you go into the basement?" My stomach dropped. Before I could even react, another message popped up. A photo of him down there grinning while eating some gross-looking sandwich in the dark. Then a final message, "Come down now." My skin crawled. I typed fast, telling him to leave me alone. Heart racing as I hit block and delete, hoping that would end whatever twisted game he was playing. That night still lives in the back of my mind like a shadow I can't shake, even now. Every time my phone lights up after dark, my stomach tightens and I hear the echo of footsteps on the stairs. The police searched every corner of my house, checked the yard, and even swept the basement window where the glass had shattered, but there was no sign of Chester. When I told them the names of the Snapchat accounts, "Why didn't you enter the basement? Why'd you block me? I know where you live," they promised to trace them. Days passed, then weeks, and I never heard a single update. The next morning, I dragged myself to school, hoping it was all some horrible mistake. I went straight to the principal, certain Chester would be in the records somewhere, but when I said his name, the principal just frowned. "We don't have a student by that name," he said. He checked the database, the attendance logs, even old yearbooks. Nothing. No Chester, no transfer student, no visitor pass. Security footage finally revealed the truth. A tall figure sneaking through a back door before first period, blending into the crowd like he belonged. He'd walked the halls all day, sitting in classes like any other kid, then slipped out before anyone realized. I never saw him again. Maybe he left town. Maybe he's still out there, waiting for the next basement. Sometimes I wonder what was really down those stairs, why he wanted me to follow him so badly. Was it a trap? Was someone else waiting? I'll never know, and maybe that's the most terrifying part. Every time I replay that night, I realize how close I came to disappearing without a trace. If this story sent a chill down your spine, remember it's just one of the 3 disturbing true high school horror stories in this video. The next 2 are just as unsettling. Real accounts from real people who faced something unexplainable. Would you have followed him into the basement or trusted your instincts like I did? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. Before you go, tap the like button if you're as hooked on real horror as I am, and subscribe so you never miss a new story. And when you're ready for more, click the next video on the screen for the rest of these chilling true high school tales. Stay safe, Keep your doors locked and always trust that small voice inside telling you when something isn't right, because sometimes it's the only thing standing between you and the dark.